Okay, good morning again, everybody. It is 10:30, and I don't think we've seen anybody new come into the session. So I will just go ahead and start. And of course, if anyone joins, any of your colleagues join later, the recording will be made available. So I am Nisa Pear. I am the manager for communications and visibility for RESEMBID. On the screen is Indy McClymont Lafayette, who is our Communications and Visibility Officer. And of course, today we're going to go through the communications and visibility next steps during implementation. You've got this far, you've made it, but now it's a different level and next stage of your project, which is of course implementation. So we will go through what that means for communications and visibility in terms of our expectations of you, your expectations of us. I usually like to keep this session interactive, so feel free to, whenever I'm speaking, do raise your hand, post your questions in the chat. Indy is going to lead off. I will do the middle of the presentation, which is really kind of the meat and potatoes, and then Indy will speak to all of the things that I've said in theory. What does this actually mean? So I'm going to let Indy, you go ahead and start sharing this screen, and then for your introduction, and I will take over from there. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome. As Nista said, we're very happy that you have gotten to this stage, and we really do want to just ensure that the process going forward is as smooth as possible. So we are happy to just walk you through some of what we expect that we will be working on over the time. Um, Pretty much, we will be going through the EU visibility guidelines as well as our branding guidelines, talking about the distinctions between the central communications program that we as RESEMBID will be doing, as well as the project level communications. And then we will also touch a bit on the approval process for communication outputs. And as Nisa said, though, even though we have a segment for questions and answers while we're going through, if there are any burning questions or things that you want clarified, feel free to just raise your hand and ask, and we will um tag team. As I know, sometimes when you're presenting, whoever is presenting may not see the hand, but Nisa and I will work that through. um we just wanted to underscore how RESEMBID views communication, because for RESEMBID, it's a critical part of the project implementation process. Um, because some projects at times, communication comes at the back end when it's closing off. You have a closing ceremony and you highlight the achievements, and that may be it. But we think that strategic communications is very critical. So it's important that communications is infused from the start, sorry, of the project for you to get the maximum output. And I've heard the comment, boy, that's just so much more work. But not necessarily. If it's properly planned through and a part of the mindset of the project team, then as you're doing your planning for your activities, you will be thinking about, okay, what maybe even one communication activity would best support what the activity is. So if we're doing a field visit, do we just take some photos, do we do some videos, do we invite a media person? So having that mindset of being inclusive along the project implementation space, that's what we want to see throughout the projects. And of course, as Nisa goes through, we will share how we provide support to get that done. So I will hand back to Nisa at this point to walk us through the midsection of the presentation. Nisa?
Thanks very much, Indy. And thanks for the introduction and, really positioning why all of this is important. We know at the end of the day, ultimately, your projects are really what matter to you, whether it is you're in BVI doing smart schools or, the Queen Conch hatchery. We know that ultimately your projects really are your driving force. Um, so that communication may seem to come at the back end. We totally understand that it is not second nature to most people, which is why one, we are here, ready and available to field all your questions, concerns, and of course give any inputs as needed. But this is also why the two documents that I'm about to go through exist. Namely, first the EU visibility guidelines, and then the RESEMBID visibility guidelines, which is a fluid document, but you will see very much a practical, hands-on tool as you work during your project. Now, we're happy to share this document with you, but of course, this document should not be something that is new to you, because it is embedded in your communications and visibility template, of course, which you would have done before. So I'm not going to go through too much time on this particular document. I just want to stress that it is extremely important. It is not only the kind of overarching governing document that guides you, but it also guides RESEMBID comms. Ultimately, the European Union is the donor, and of course, is to be recognized as such, and across all media types. So if you have done the workshop on project design, or if you've spoken to Indy and myself, you know about this document. And again, not going to go into much detail, but I do encourage everyone who's part of your project to have this printed. May not be the most environmentally sound piece of advice I give today, but it does. At least I work better with printed elements. You can make your notes, etc. And certainly, whoever is in charge of communications and visibility for your project absolutely must have this on hand. So, again, not going through too much because you should have this, but it does go through the introduction, why we're doing this in the first place, go through the communication and visibility plan, which again, you would have worked up through your template, but this does help you to give more shape to that. And I know in the previous session, Vinko and Daniela mentioned that there could be a supplementary session to this. And we do think that, there is room for more communications and visibility sessions in terms of how to of press releases, media advisories, etc. So that even though you come to us with your questions, we want to continue to give you more tools to produce your own material. Excuse me. So as mentioned, this really does go into the different products that can be derived from your comms and visibility activities. Most of them, or all of them, really should have already been captured in your communications and visibility template. But you can absolutely use this. Okay, so your template says, yes, we're going to produce video. This document then goes into that and gives you some hands-on tips as to how to do this video. So for example, we received a draft video literally only yesterday, from a project in the Cayman Islands, and it was very clear that they had looked at this document and they were able to thank the European Union, etc. So that all we had to do was approve. We didn't have to spend any time in kind of going through the nitty-gritty and making and adding this and taking that. It had already been done because they had very, very clearly and very closely followed this document. And it does go through this for all sorts of different media, even more than the RESEMBID visibility guideline does. So again, we really, really encourage you to take not just a look at this, but keep it close and always reference it. Again, we will get to this part in terms of approvals. We will always be on hand to give final approval, but this significantly does reduce your time in production, but our time, of course, in getting back to you as well. So if for any reason you have not received this, it is embedded in your communications and visibility template. And of course, if nothing else, you're absolutely welcome to request that from us. So as mentioned, we have developed, and this is a fluid document, the RESEMBID Visibility Guidelines, which is really a supplementary document to what I would have just shared, the EU Visibility Guidelines. But this becomes very specific to RESEMBID, to our branding, and of course, how we co-brand with you for your different outputs. Right. So this is again a document that you will receive. And what it does, it's like I said, it really brings home the kind of general overview picture provided by the EU visibility guidelines. It brings this in and narrows the focus into how this relates to RESEMBID. So the first and very critical part of this document is the RESEMBID logo and the how the visual representations of this logo. And of course, now we do have two versions, so it does also explain what is used for when, etc., etc. Now, rest assured that you don't. So, as I mentioned, there are two different logos, or two versions of the logo. The horizontal logo, is used when you have more room to play with, versus the stack logo is when space is limited. Now, that being said, in addition to this document, and again, if you are not in receipt, do send us an email, comms@resembid.com, or you can email myself or Indy. And Indy, if you could go ahead and just place those three emails into the chat, that would be great. In addition to this document, you will also receive a zip folder of all of these versions of the logo. So whether it is a stacked one, colored, black and white, transparent, so that you use these to, again, you cut down on time in terms of asking us for this, but you can share that with whether it's a graphic artist, printer, whoever, website developer, and they're all versions of this logo available for use in this zip folder. So, of course, again, if there are any issues, please feel free to contact us, but everything should be there for you. So not only do we give you the different versions of the logo and how to use it, but there are also very specific dimensions in terms of how to use this graphic. So if you have to put it on a letterhead, on a virtual background, all this kind of stuff, you have your guidance here as to how to use it. And of course, again, with the two different kinds of logos. And again, but you would create different products that have different sizes. So again, we do give you the sizing, the recommended sizing to use. Equally important to learning or to knowing how to use the logo correctly is knowing what is the incorrect usage of the logo, which is again explained here. Because we give you the source files for the logo, we don't expect any changes to be made to color, using an outline, making it bold, removing any of the elements. So we do insist, not even encourage, but insist that you use what is sent in the source files. But we know, for example, if you are, let's say, printing T-shirts, sometimes some printers separate the elements. So if that for any reason does happen, you do have guidelines as to, how to go about doing that. Again, because we do send you the source files, we don't expect any variations in color, etc. But if for any reason, should it happen, should any separation of the pieces happen, you do have, and you can send this again to your printer, certainly the person in charge of comms and visibility. You do have the exact colors that need to be used, so you don't have to, it's not a guessing game, it's all right there. The secondary colors, this is generally for RESEMBID use, but if if you want some sort of guidance in terms of from a design perspective, if you're putting together a poster, a leaflet, whatever it is, we do have some suggestions here for our secondary colors that we do use, but of course, because it's your project, you're welcome to use whatever works best, whether it's your logo, etc., etc. We do have our chosen font is Montserrat, found in PowerPoint, Word, etc. Again, this really does govern um our logo and our look and feel. But again, if you say, okay, let's have some quality control here. We want to look as close as possible to RESEMBID. Again, totally your call. But if you do, this is the font that you use. So as I mentioned, this is really a practical how-to guideline as to, okay, you've got you have the logo versions, you know how to use it. Great. Now, how do I put a t-shirt together? How do I do a lanyard, a cup, whatever? And as mentioned, this is very much a fluid document. So the examples of co-branding that I'm about to present are really those that we've seen presented several times in the communications and visibility plans and the templates. So we've just highlighted the more frequent ones. That being said, if you don't see a product that your template speaks to, of course, feel free to mention it to us. We will walk you through the design, and we can even put it on this fluid document so that others can see. So what am I talking about here? So you have, and again, this is indicative. So if you have a water bottle and not a coffee cup, it's the same, it's the same rules for each. So on one side, you do have your project logo. So whatever your project logo is, if you don't have a project logo and you choose to use your whether it is your the agency, your NGO, whatever it is, you put that on one side, and on the flip side of the cup or the bottle, whatever it is you have. And again, we provide this image to you. It is the RESEMBID logo on top, and the logo of the European Union, Expertise France, and the World Bank GFTRR on the underside. Again, really important. We do provide this to you, so you don't actually have to, build this, we call it our strap line. It is provided for you, and again, in all the different elements that you will need. We've provided options in different colors. Now, because this strap line here is in white, we do encourage sticking to these colors or this kind of color scheme that we've identified here. But if for any reason you want to have a green cup or an orange cup or something, again, you are free to reach out to us with your design idea. Either way, none of this is to be implemented before our approval, which again, we will get into. So, the door is always open on that side. Given an example here of a black or dark colored product, because of course, as you can see, we do have options where the RESEMBID logo is white. So there are opportunities to use this white background, or sorry, the white logo, and of course we would encourage this on the use of darker material. We have lots of t-shirts and polos being produced. So again, this is how we recommend going forward with this. So as the note says on the left-hand side, the project logo goes on the left breast, RESEMBID on the right, and the partner logo strip, again, all provided for you and translated in English and French, goes on the back of the t-shirt. And same thing with color options, as well as, of course, the black option that gives you the opportunity to use our very handsome white logo. We do have some caps. So again, project logo kind of it does go in the center. Of course, the project remains the central focus, with our visibility being recognized, with the RESEMBID on the right side and the partner logo strip on the left, again with some color options. And lastly on this document is the letterhead, which a lot of people are developing. Of course, you use this for whether it is your formal communication, press releases, documents, whatever, the floor is yours in terms of uses for your letterhead. But this is the recommended setup. So again, your project logo is on the left, RESEMBID is on the right, and always the partner logos at the bottom. Right. So as I mentioned, we will share this with you. Um, in fact, I don't think most people have received this one because this is actually just updated to include these visual elements. So we're happy to share with those of you who are on this call. If you know you have team members who needs to be in receipt of this, please feel free to email India myself. I believe the emails would have been put into the chat, and we are happy to send this to you. Right. So next, I'll stop here. Are there any questions in the chat? Please feel free again to raise your hand if anything. Indy, do we have any questions at this point?
No, no questions yet, but I do see a couple emails coming in requesting the material, so we are noting that.
All right, no problem. Thanks, Indy, and thanks everybody. We're happy to share this immediately following this presentation. And I'm happy that you're requesting it because it means you think it's as useful as we want it to be. So thanks for that. And that being said, if you do receive the documents in terms of the zip folder and the brand guidelines, if there's anything that is missing, again, this is a fluid organic document that we're really trying to tailor as best as possible to the best uses for your projects. Do let us know if anything is missing and we'd be happy to include it. So, the RESEMBID Central Communications Program, what on earth does this mean? So, and I know Vinko mentioned in his presentation that there have been several questions about this. So happy to walk this through in detail, and happy, of course, to respond to any questions. Okay, so in terms of our the program CNV, I'm going to say CNV from now on, meaning communications and visibility. So in terms of our CNV strategy, it exists on two levels. So and it's firstly is the activities distributed between RESEMBID's communication unit, which is the central level, and the grantee or your level, the project level. So you know what you are going to do on the project level. The project level communications is exactly what you have outlined in your communications and visibility template, exactly what we would have approved, exactly what we would expect to see from, being produced from your projects. But we want to take that a step further. And we, from the Central Communications Program, we really want to illustrate on an even deeper level how much your projects impact in country, and the areas of focus, of course, resilient, sustainable energy, marine biodiversity, and of course the COVID-19 facility, if your project falls under that. Um, so yes, we highlight how it's funded, etc. We have your press releases or all this good stuff. But we really, really on the central level want to highlight how your projects are impacting lives on the OCTs. So we have devised a policy document that really, again, we encourage you to, print it, share it, read it, understand it as to why we are doing this in the first place, the genesis of this idea. And this is now on our website, on the resources page, which is right here as soon as it loads. Right, and it's literally the first document here in terms of the communications and visibility guidelines for grant contracts. So this is a policy document that outlines all of the things that India and I speak about today, all of the things we've spoken about bilaterally, but it also goes into the policy about why we're doing this central level communications in the first place and what we hope to achieve with it. So again, we do encourage you to go onto the website and do that. So how does this work in a practical sense? So we look at your overall project, we look at the communications and visibility, the planned communications and visibility activities. We look at your product, and we kind of look at it from an outsider's perspective and say, okay, Project X has these this social media campaign lined up. They have these um radio interviews. But let's take that a step further. Is there a fishing village that is impacted by these activities? How can we go in there and really tell these stories of value, that the stories that hit home? How do we get into these communities and tell that? Are there any children impacted, positively impacted, their families impacted by resilience projects in schools? How do we tell the stories of these children with their parents and guardians' permissions, of course? Are there teachers impacted by resilience projects? What is if Cayman Islands is able to save €1 million? Again, I'm just off the top of my head, because of energy saving activities, because of their projects. How does this translate? What is the impact on the country's GDP? Where did this excess money go? All of these different things. We really want to go into beyond what the planned activities, and tell these stories of impact that really resonates with not just the people in OCTs, yourselves, but of course from our end, our donor, the European Union, the Expertise France is the implementation agency. Now, I say all of these things, like I said, this was just kind of top of my head, based on just having a cursory idea of the projects in train. But note that we will absolutely not produce anything, or create any content without your input and without your guidance. Ultimately, I sit here in St. Martin and I think, oh, this sounds like a great idea. But you are first of all, it's your project, and you are the ones who are on the ground working with your stakeholders. So we may have this lofty idea for the story to be told, but it will be done in conjunction with you, in collaboration with you, because as we always say, this entire RESEMBID project, it really is nothing, or program is nothing, without your projects. And our outlook is OCT driven, OCT centered. So from your communications and visibility budget, as well as from your overall budget, we do allocate a percentage of our programmable funds for this very reason. Now, of course, you would know by now that it is, if you tell us you need €100 for your communications and visibility activities, you receive €100, of course, with our, once we've determined that that is sufficient, and it is value for money in terms of your activities, you receive the €100. The percentage that we allocate, it is not taken from your €100. It is something set aside. So let's say, we've looked at your project. We've given you €100, and we say, you know what, a 5% extra would be good to help us tell these extra stories when we're ready to do it. That $5 is then set aside. It is not, your budget is not impacted at all. So what do we do with this? When we've developed this great content, we've gone beyond the planned activities on the communications and visibility template. What do we do with this? So as mentioned, we will share this content within our immediate networks. We have a vast stakeholder network. And in addition, of course, the content is also yours to be shared. Again, it's based on your project, so you can share it in country, etc. And within your professional networks, NGO networks, whatever. But we will also look at distributing this through our networks through the wider Caribbean. RESEMBID really has a strong focus on regionality, so that even if, yes, these projects are occurring within the OCTs, so we intend to let everybody know what the Dutch OCTs are doing, the French, the UCOTs, everybody, as well as take that beyond the Caribbean OCTs. My accent is very heavily from Trinidad and Tobago. Indy sits as the national of Jamaica. So we really want to encourage this spirit of regionality and share all of this, all of our products with the wider Caribbean community. And of course, the European Union as the donor, expertise France, and other key European stakeholders. What we also are doing now is there is a global body called OCTA, which is a global body that has really kind of brought all of these global OCTs together. So we sit in the Caribbean, there's the Pacific OCTs. There are many others who would like to know what the other OCTs are doing, and this is what from our end, this is what we really intend to do, just spread the gospel of RESEMBID and all of these great projects as far as we can. Um, Again, we do have an extensive stakeholder network, but we could always go wider. So Indy and myself are in touch with several regional media entities about these strategic partnerships and how best we go about telling these stories and telling your stories to the widest network possible. Of course, with as much airtime, whether it's radio, TV, paid social media, websites, whatever it is, we really kind of tailor that outreach to get the best bang for this, allocation that we put aside. So now that I've given you the overview of what this is, why we're doing it, what we intend to do with it, what is the it? What are these program outputs? So because you at the grantee slash project communications level, because you are focusing on the very important elements like, press conferences, press releases, in-person events, um, your tangible outputs, whether it is policy papers, whatever it is. We really want to, because our focus is this human element and this impact element. The content of the central communications program the outputs are going to be largely video content. So of course of course there will be additional press releases, etc. Should whenever these stories develop. But our focus really is video content that we can share again across. I would have just gone through the different planned networks that we have. And again, really to tell these stories of impact and to go beyond the words on a paper. So you see whether it's kids, fishing communities, whatever it is on video. Um, and then we have beyond the media outreach, we do have internal products. We have the letter from the director, which in due course you will all receive, that gives a really good encapsulation of different, where we are with the program. And we have highlighted in the past several projects in train at this point and in development. So now, of course, we can use these different products too, and our website, etc., which sees a lot of traffic, to highlight the stories from your projects. As far as possible, again, we really want to be as open and interactive and useful to you. So with enough notice, we are also happy, RESEMBID is also happy to participate at your events. We're not just leaving you in the wilderness. We are genuinely happy to be a part of this in terms of the technical cooperation, in terms on how we can help on the CNB level. And we really want to, as far as we can, deliver words of encouragement and explaining our why we would have approved your projects in the first place. So once we have adequate notice, we are happy to be part of your virtual events, and of course, once the time and budget allows, in your in-person events as well, with the caveat that you've given us more than enough time to do this. Again, this kind of just goes into what I've just said in terms of what on this project level communications, what we intend to output. So I am going to stop here for any questions before Indy heads into the last part of this, which is, you've done all of this, you understand why we're here, you know how to use the logo, great. Now what? I'm ready to produce my caps. I'm ready to produce my presentations, virtual backgrounds. Now what? Who do I go to? What is the process for approval, etc.? So I'll stop here for any questions. And if not, then Indy can go ahead with the second part, the last part of this.
I don't see any questions at the moment, Nissa, but um, going once, going twice, anything burning before we go through further?
Yeah. We do have a Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions at the end, no pressure. Feel free to respond to us then.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the approval process. We certainly do want to provide guidance to everyone, and as Nisa had indicated, it's important that you share all the materials that you intend to disseminate with us in due time, um, so that we can properly review. We would ideally like to have some adequate notice, in terms of review time. Um, so we will try to accommodate your timelines and deadlines as much as possible, but ideally at least a week or two to give us to review. Because remember that we are dealing with, as Vinko said, there are 8 projects fully under implementation, but overall we have 48 project concepts approved. Well, the concept that number includes the project, so you can see that it's a large portfolio and it's quite a bit that we will have to be coordinating. Now that said, no, Nisa, I'm not quite finished with that one yet. Thanks. We want no material under either of the 2 levels is authorized, without written consent. So we will respond to your email. I just want to highlight that for interviews, though, that's not one of the things that we have to approve because we've gotten that comment and question a couple times. But we would like to be informed of any upcoming interviews so that we can support, listen in, share, and along those lines. Can you next slide for me, please, Nisa? We are encouraging you as much as possible to, I think Nisa fell off. So let me just share my screen. Just a second, please.
Apologies, everyone. It would seem that I bumped myself out of my own presentation. So I'll let Indy go ahead. Thanks.
Yes, I'm just ensuring that I am on the right page. 1 second. Sorry, I have a little bit of background noise there. Right, so we are encouraging that you share with us as much as possible photos from your projects, planned events. Just a second, please. So we would want you to share with us what you have upcoming, photos of your projects, your press releases. We also really want to ensure that you in your quarterly reports, you give us, you follow the reporting template there. If you have any challenges meeting your timelines, meeting, your commitments under the CMV plans, feel free to indicate to us early enough that this is a challenge, this is an issue, and then we can work with you on, how we get through and provide assistance. Um, and I think I will leave it there at the moment and just reopen the floor for follow-up questions.
I am not seeing any hands up or any questions. Let me check the chat. So I hope that means that we have answered all of your burning
No,
questions for CNB. Nope,
sorry,
I'm
sorry.
seeing Lorraine. Yes.
Yes, because I did not see the hand. I do not see the hand on my screen, so I decided to butt
Okay.
in. Sorry, this
No
is
problem.
Lorraine.
Please butt in, butt away.
Yes, you mentioned that we have to have consent and approval for certain publications beforehand. Now, what would the response time be? Because I see for press releases, it would be about a week, but other publications, what would the response time be, and what if that response time is taking too long? Let's put it like that.
Sure, great question, and thanks for that. So we say a week as a worst case scenario. We generally try as far as possible to respond as quickly as possible. That being said, if something is urgent, if you know, so for example, I would have mentioned we had some material to approve from the Cayman Islands yesterday, and they indicated it's urgency that they had to, you know, approve something before going to press at 2 o'clock that yesterday, and we were very much able to flex and do that. It is easier for us, I think, to approve digital materials quickly, or quicker, I would say, than text material, because for us in the text material we verify, let's say, the grant amount, the purpose of it. So we go into the product. We really do take great, you know, go to great pains to ensure accuracy. But we also, because again, we do consider this collaborative as far as possible, we do try to, once, you know, once it's appropriate, we do provide a quote as well from whether it is your the relevant program manager or even our director, myself or Indy, who could provide a quote. So that would take, the press releases is really for that week long span that we give is really more for that printed material, but we can certainly do digital material faster. If, like I said, if there is for any reason, because life happens, and if something needs to be urgently approved, you're more than welcome to indicate that as well.
And let me just
All
add,
right.
Nisa,
Thank
that
you. Thank you very much. Sorry,
we
Indy, go ahead.
Y- No, just I think you're saying read the time. If you do find that you haven't heard from us within the week, you know, for any reason, feel free to do a follow-up. We do take it very seriously to try to meet timelines and respond within that time frame. But if you're not hearing anything, just send a follow-up query and we will be back in touch. And also just to that it's good to allow a little time for the back and forth thing, because sometimes we found with, as Nisa was saying, with the press releases, you know, you have several changes, several iterations, which may take a little more time depending on how quickly we get back and what is the timeline. So I remember one project, the first project, I think we spent a month back and forth in on the press release, you know, but luckily that was not an urgent timeline, but we just wanted to have it done early. So you have to give yourself some wiggle room time as well.
Okay, thank you. I do have a follow-up question. I understand, but now what if the press release is not in English or French? Will you be able to check that out too? Because we might be sending out press releases in Dutch and or Papiamento too.
Or Spanish, as in the case of the ACS. Great question. So my Spanish is, I think that sounds like Kennedy. Kennedy could send it away in Spanish. However, I cannot promise to translate French and Dutch. So as far as possible, yes, do send us the release in English so that you know, you can get the appropriate feedback from us. And once the English is approved, then you can send, you are free to send out in the relevant language. Now, this actually raises an important point, and you know, as I mentioned before, with the RESEMBID guidelines document, it is fluid because you know this program is fluid. This program is you know, growing and learning, and as are we. So again, this is a safe space. India and I have an open door policy, so I'll share something with you that we've learned from the communications end. So maybe about a month and a half ago, we did send out a press release that was, you know, picked up all over the region, all over the world, really. It was, you know, one of the first press release from RESEMBID in a long time. We're very proud of it. Um, but then we realized that a lot of it wasn't being picked up in a lot of the OCTs. And it was only admittedly weeks later when, when we were kind of troubleshooting and doing our postmortems, etc., that I just had this, it just dawned on me that we sent it out in English. So we really, even from our end, we did not account for how important it is to ensure that everybody is as accessible as possible. And I say accessible, and this is a side point, but when you're doing particularly video material, accessibility is also important for us. So captions so that the hearing impaired can access, etc. So yes, we do encourage absolutely sharing in whatever native or local languages uh, important to you and to your project. In fact, we really applaud it. But do send it to us in English so that we're able to give our full expert, not broken feedback. And then you're free to translate as well.
Um, let me add something to that as well, Nisa. Well, two things. Um, so yes, the language is one thing that we'll work on, but I also want to flag that we want to work with the projects on building the partnerships with the media so that we can maximize visibility. So we will be reaching out to you in terms of, if you're having interactions with the media houses, we would like to be a part and strengthen some of what you have. We are looking at some capacity building because we want to ensure that the issues for the thematic areas are properly covered. And, sometimes we found that these areas are not as sexy in quotation, so sometimes they may not get as much visibility, but we want to ensure in the host countries that we are engaging as much as possible to maximize visibility and coverage. We also want to, for social media, encourage you to tag us when you're posting so that we can reshare um and add support on that end. And as far as possible, we will also do the same. So we want to just ensure that we're working closely together to let people see the work that is being done.
Thanks, Indy. And on that note, we just really kind of piggybacking off what Indy said. We know that you will share press releases, for example, through your own network. So we do encourage you to let us know who they are so that, we not only build our own database, but when we are distributing, all that great video content, all that other material from the central communications level, we have access to your groups in country that we know will friends of the program. We know that whether it is the editor, whoever you have a relationship with, please feel free to share those contacts with us because ultimately it helps us to help you at the end.
And one point too, Nisa, is that we can help with the media monitoring, because that is very, very important. Seeing, who picked up your releases where. I'm not sure how much of that you will actually do as the project. And it's not something that we're saying you have to do and we'll be behind you doing, but where possible, it's good to have an idea of the pickup rate for the material, especially the press releases that you send out. So if you can include something on that in your reporting on your CMV, then that's fantastic. But if it's a challenge, perhaps we can also look a bit at, doing a little of the monitoring. So when we know who you're sending to and so on, it's easier for us to do some of that.
Thanks, Indy. Any more questions on this?
Kennedy here from ECS. Not really a question, just sort of a notification. The training comes at a very timely point, given that we are currently preparing to attend the FIT Cuba from the 3rd to the 7th of May. And within that, we were already working on some artwork for a RESEMBID pull-up banner and flyer. So you will be receiving those from us within the hour.
No problem, Kennedy. I'm sat on my computer. We will approve today.
Excellent, excellent. Because we are pressed for printing. We're doing a whole.
Yeah, trust me,
So,
I know the stresses of production, so send away.
okay, great.
All right. I just have one more thing to say about the central level communications as it relates to project communications, and then we can close off there because I know we have one more session in 9 minutes on meal. Um, so it's easy to get excited about, possibly having this extra money to tell even more stories about your projects. And it is there. However, note that it really is dedicated for this purpose, which is the storytelling, human interest, human impact purpose. So it is not meant, and again, I know I'm preaching to the choir, and we would have said this to most of you in our interface, but we haven't met some of you. It is not meant for additional project comms output. So if your CNB plan has indicated you want 100 t-shirts and we've provided the financing for that, this is not what that is for. And which is why we would have encouraged at the outset to really be sure that you've really kind of covered all of the bases with your CNB activities, because there is no flex in the budget for these additional, let's say it's t-shirts or cups or whatever it is, signage, which, we got many templates that spoke to one pull-up band, and we said, no, do three, because life happens, and, there are production errors, or, they get destroyed. So and we do encourage you to come to us with the stories that you of impact that you see on the ground, but with the understanding that this central communications project um, plan is really for this very specific purpose, and not for what you would have already come up with and gotten approval for in your template. So I will stop there. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for the last couple of hours. Sincere congratulations again on getting to this point. I am, we are in awe of so many of your projects, and it's literally just in the conceptual level. Now it's time for implementation and rollout. And on behalf of Indian and I and the rest of the RESEMBID team, we really, really look forward to your implementation from the comms, and we really look forward to working with you to tell your stories, and of equal importance to share those stories as well. So thank you again. Have a great day, and we will respond to all of those requests for the material that we've shared this morning. And Kennedy in particular, I will look out for your material to be approved. Thanks, everybody. So, and stay on, have a bathroom break, whatever. And Marsha, I'm seeing Marsha on screen. Marsha Watson Hilton is our meal expert, and she will take you through the next hour of this session. Thanks, everybody.